Hi everyone, this is Olivia from the Alexandrienne channel, and today we are going to work on teddy bear expressions, and these can be used for other animals or people as well, but our focus is on teddy bears. So let's get started. In our first video on teddy bears, we covered the faces, and we are going to go into more detail with the expressions today. I will create another video very soon where I spend my time drawing and explaining the different expressions, features, etc. But this one I am devoting to the understanding of some of the different features and positions. This one is more of an explanation and comparison, more of a teachy kind of thing. Here we go. Okay, you can see on the left side that I've put an image of a little teddy bear with a straw hat. And we're going to compare her to the very first teddy bear that I have taken from the last video on the top left of those drawn teddy bears. If you look at her and compare the two, you can see that they have not identical but basically the same expression. So while they were done in a different style, they still have the basic same expressions. They have their little nose about in the same position, a little line drawn down from the nose, and an angled smile. One of the biggest differences is the shape of their eyes. The one that I drew on the last video, the eyes are bright, straight up, and the one that I'm comparing it to, her eyes are a little smaller and turned inward towards the center of her face. And she also has eyebrows, which the other one does not. So there are many reasons for you to see differences here and get a different emotion, even though their expressions are basically either the same or very similar. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about the differences. She has eyebrows, and I will say he does not. That way it'll be easier to compare the two, he and she. Whenever you put eyebrows on a face, it allows you another opportunity to create a type of emotion. The shape of her eyebrows are kind of gentle and curved up and out a little bit, and in this case it gives her more of a gentle appearance and almost asking you for your opinion or your approval or what do you think. But I have to include this is really important, that today we are just talking about basic expressions. However, you cannot exclude in any way, shape, or form the rest of the drawing because it all comes into play when you are taking into consideration the overall feeling of the drawing. So if you just have, like he has, just a face with some features, you'll just get a basic emotion. Whereas with her, she has on pink and light blue, and you know what those colors tend to emote. She has flowers. So everything that is included in her helps to give you that type of an emotion. So while we are comparing these two, it's much easier to pick up on the entirety of what she is trying to do because it's pretty much all inclusive there, except for if you were putting a statement question, something inside that heart, which was what this drawing was really intended for, then it would be very direct. But without that, you still get this feeling of, like, hi, I want to share something with you. What do you think? Kind of thing. Carrying on. Okay, now I'll read this to you. It says, very similar expressions, yet each one evokes a slightly different feeling. They are both sweet, attentive, and they are addressing you because they're looking directly at you. So why don't you get the same emotion? And I briefly touched on this a minute ago. Both of these images are complete. Well, mostly complete anyway. I don't have the backgrounds included in them. But you can tell by looking at the image as a whole that the one on the left is kind of happy, serene, that sort of thing. And the one on the right, because of the position of her body and surrounding items, that she looks like she's almost saying, "Oops, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that. So will you please accept my apology?" So let's go into this just a little bit further. They both have very, very similar expressions, even more so than the last images we talked about, because they both have eyebrows that are basically in the same position. While the styles are a little bit different, their nose is basically the same. They have the same vertical line going down from the nose. They have a very similar but somewhat different expression on their mouth. They both have kind of like that wide V type of mouth, which, makes a smile. But they are a little bit different. The one on the right, hers is smaller, which does make a difference. Hers is a little more timid. The one on the left, hers is a little more expressive and wide. And on their eyes, as previously mentioned, the one on the left, they're tilted in towards her nose. The one on the right, they are a full circle. And when you have eyes with a full circle in connection with the rest of her expression, you get more of that wide-eyed kind of oops look. And the one on the left, you don't get that. So all of this is trying to explain to you that very subtle differences in the features makes a big difference on the overall feeling that you are going to get. Okay, on to the next. But I would like to say I hope you don't think I'm being long-winded, even though I am, but there is just so much involved with emotions, expressions, so much to it. Even though it appears to be quite simple, and it is, that doesn't mean that, it's not very involved. They're very simple to create. You just want to make for sure that you create the ones that you're intending to. Because if you want something happy and joyful, you certainly don't want to make something that looks sad, or vice versa. So that's why I'm trying to really go in depth here. Okay, let's go on to number 2, which you might think should be like 10 by now. But it will get faster because I'm covering a lot of the very basics that apply to all of them with this first image or two. Okay, now we are going to move on to the next image on the right from the first. And we are going to focus on the mouth. I've included an image that I have altered the mouth a little bit a few different times so you can see the difference in how it appears that they are feeling. The first one, starting from the top left, is the original one. And he's got just a little bitty open mouth. And so it looks like he's kind of unsure, questioning, that sort of thing. The second one, the opening is attached to the diagonal or vertical line, and it's a little bit bigger. So this seems to me anyway to make it maybe a little more of like there's a little more emphasis on what's going on, maybe a little more important, or maybe a little more uncertain. What do you think? And then on the third, it looks even more so. It looks like, oh dear, something's wrong. And then on the fourth one, you can see where the opening is tilted up, which brings about a positive emotion. And I've got another little line just for emphasis on that area. But so you can see how it goes from uncertain and questioning through the evolution to where at the end, it's a positive thing, like, oh, they're discussing something maybe that's happy or something that happened that was a surprise. So just a few changes in that little mouth can make a very big difference. And guess what? I told you they would get shorter. They are. This is all I have to say about those two faces, being number 2 and number 5. See? Told ya. Okay, on to the next one. Now these are not expressions I'm talking about, but they really work with the expressions. This is the head tilt. Should you tilt or should you not? So I thought that would definitely be worth mentioning. As you can see on this image, the two on the far left both have their heads tilted up. The one in the center bottom has its head tilted down. center-ish top is upside down, and the one on the far right has maybe a tiny tilt but pretty much straight on. And you can just see from looking at those that you get a different sense, a different feeling just from the head tilt. So I thought it was definitely worth mentioning to you. Take that into consideration when you are making your head and putting your features inside. I'll just briefly talk about a few aspects of this. On the top left, the little teddy bear is laying on his tummy and looking up, and it gives you the impression or the feeling that he's pondering, daydreaming, thinking about something. That oftentimes happens with that type of head tilt. And then on the bottom, same kind of thing, only because of what he has with him, he's thinking about love, wondering where his sweetheart is. Now in the center, the little teddy bear that's looking down a little bit, because of everything else, the body positioning, hand positioning, tiny little smile peeking out, it looks like it's done something that might be a tiny bit mischievous, but in a very sweet way. And then on top, well, that's just silly. It's a frame and he's just hanging upside down having a grand time, which if you're hanging upside down, you would think you'd probably be having a really good time too, or getting ready to fall. Okay, and on the last one here, on the far right, the little princess, she's basically looking pretty straight on. So again, she's one of these who's looking at you with a little smile. I think she thinks she's pretty cute, but she's got a direct look at you. So the head tilt does make a difference. And when you include the different features that you want, take into consideration the head as well in with those features if you should tilt it or not. Okay, on to the next. We already talked about this in the last video, the adult versus child, baby placement of the features. So I will keep this very, very short. I just wanted to mention that where you put all of your features does make a difference. If you spread them out over most of the face or if you keep them on the bottom half. And that's regardless of an age that you are trying to portray. On this image, you can see that all three of these are either adults, teens, something like that. And the image on the far left, this guy's working out, he's pretty buff. Anyway, his features, if you'll notice, his nose is definitely over the halfway mark. And on the next one, his features come up over the halfway mark. And on the one on the far right, the little patriotic girl, her features are actually lower than the halfway mark. And you can see that you get a different sense from these three images. On the far left, it's more playful. The center one, he is definitely more serious, but he gives the impression of being sure of himself. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, he's, he knows what he's doing and he's got a little wisdom. And the girl on the right, she's also either a teen or an adult, but her features are on the bottom half. So she gives the impression of being a little softer, maybe a little more vulnerable, a little gentler. So take that into consideration too, because that will once again affect the overall impression or feelings that the viewer receives. We've covered quite a few basics in this video about expressions, features, etc. That should give you a good idea so you'll be able to, hopefully, when I do the next video and draw, you might be able to draw along with me or at least have a much better understanding of how one part affects the other and the different expressions, how they work together with the body's positioning, etc. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. And if you have a chance, you might play around with this some and see what you come up with. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Much love, Olivia.